Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I know we're all very excited to share our perspectives and experiences in terms of not only arts-based and events-based tourism in rural and remote communities, but building capacity and what that looks like in rural and remote spaces. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping points. So we do ask that everyone remain muted, just so that we're not getting the multiple visuals. Um, as well, we are going to be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So we ask that anyone that has any questions, comments, inquiries, anything like that, if you would like to include them in the chat at any point throughout the presentations, we will have a moderated session at the end. As you all heard, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available on the MAN YouTube channel following today. So if you missed anything, if you have to leave early, or if you would just like to share everything that we've shared, please feel free to do so. So without further ado, I'll get us all started. Okay, so I would like to introduce all of the speakers in the order in which they will be presenting today. So first we have myself. My name is Nicole Breedon, and among many other roles at RDI, I work as a researcher at the Brandon University Rural Development Institute. I also do knowledge mobilization coordination and international research as well. This past year, I was able to complete the Accommodation in Manitoba project in collaboration with the Tourism and Recreation Research Center here at Brandon University, as well as the Manitoba Hotel Association. This project specifically focused on exploring the roles of accommodations within rural and remote communities. And, all of the participants were able to share very valuable insights. So I'll be sharing some of the findings from this case study project. Next, we have Jane Ireland. Jane is a member engagement coordinator at the Manitoba Arts Network and maintains a diverse background in fields of community development, arts administration, project development, and project management. Her considerable managerial, organizational, and administrative experience includes art curation, strategic planning, programming development, evaluation, grant writing, fundraising, performing arts presentations, event planning, and campaign management. So a variety of skills there. Jane's superpower is the ability to work with diverse groups and provide leadership in a variety of contexts. Our third presenter will be Kaitlyn Mitchell. Kaitlyn is the general manager of the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium. Growing up in Boulder, she held a variety of roles within community, teaching dance and music, sitting on student council, volunteering in numerous capacities for sports and engagement opportunities, and so forth. She graduated from Boulder High School in 2008. She then continued her educational journey immediately following this graduation at the University of Manitoba before moving to Brandon to pursue a degree in business administration. Kaitlyn graduated amongst the top of her class in 2013 with a minor in philosophy and a business focus of accounting. Upon graduating at BU, Kaitlyn's career in business administration began at the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium in the position of office clerk. After a few years there, she attained a full-time accounting position with Venture Accounting Group, Ltd. In Brandon. And for several more years, she provided bookkeeping, controlship, payroll, and CFO services to over 30 different Western Manitoba businesses of all sizes and industries. In 2023, Kaitlyn landed her dream job that she never knew she wanted, the general manager at the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium. Combining her early passions for the arts with her experience and knowledge in business, Kaitlyn manages this 800 soft seat theater in Brandon. In just 2 short years, Kaitlyn managed to make headway to expand the diversity of the WMCA's self-presented programming, build the venue's reputation amongst touring arts professionals, develop critical planning and for capital and operations, and working to modernize systems and agreements. Our final presenter for today will be Dr. Gary McNeely. Gary holds a PhD in philosophy from York University, a Master's of Arts in Philosophy from the University of Guelph, and a Bachelor in Arts and Philosophy from Brandon University. Gary is currently the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition Coordinator at the Rural Development Institute at Brandon University, among his other roles at Brandon University. His research includes intersections of PLAR, adult learning, rural community and economic development, rural immigration, and rural policy. So now that we have everyone introduced, I will get us started. Before I jump into key findings, I did want to extend my most sincere thanks to all of the participants in this project. Here, I'll just move this quick. I don't know if is this black bar in the way at all? I'll just move it up maybe. Just in case. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so before we get started, I do want to extend my sincere thank you to all of the participants. We were able to gain a lot of insights on what tourism looks like in rural and remote communities. And we do want to continue this work and share the findings in multiple ways as best we can. As a staff member of the Rural Development Institute, we understand and appreciate the fact that communities within rural and remote spaces are notoriously underrepresented when it comes to policy design and implementation. And this can result in some pretty damaging results. If the realities and circumstances of rural and remote communities are not understood, there leaves little to no room to design effective policy that actually channels support and fosters tailored systems to address place-specific needs. In order to address these capacity needs, we first have to start engaging members of the community to better understand what the gaps in capacity are. Throughout this project, I was able to conduct key informant interviews and engage in conversations with 13 different key informants from 6 different communities. Those being Brandon, Dauphin, Falcon Lake and the Whiteshell, Russell Binsgarth, Ononal, and Winkler. These conversations focused on exploring the place-specific nuances of tourism in rural and remote communities across southern Manitoba. This project took place between May and October in 2024, and we're in the final stages of creating some final deliverables, such as the final report, which will have community profiles included. The collective of participating key informants included 7 general managers of accommodation establishments and 6 community stakeholders within the tourism sector. And this includes economic developers, members from the Chamber of Commerce, members from tourism agencies and associations, and so on. Well, this project also facilitated the administration of written surveys to accommodation guests. For the purpose of this webinar today, I'm just going to be talking about some key findings that emerged during these conversations with stakeholders. Tourism offers an important opportunity for communities to diversify their economies. Overnight accommodations are essential for these endeavors because they have the ability to host overnight guests as well as host events within community. These resulting evidently in the economic stimulation of community or an influx of funding within community. The economic effects of driving local visitation can impact businesses across community, whether that be local shops, restaurants, gas stations, accommodations themselves, and so on. Therefore, local stakeholders working to build on local tourism really exemplified the fact that they want to support community and the economy of the community as a whole. One of the interview participants noted, anytime there is an event that's driving visitation, you're bringing money into community, creating engagement with residents. 100% it's a good thing. And there are a lot of communities that really have embraced these kinds of events. Now, rural and remote tourism isn't all doom, gloom, and barriers. Rural and remote communities have very unique strengths, that being their connections within community and their relationships within community. When asked about the assets that the communities maintained, informants noted different businesses and services and strengths. This included local art scenes and arts-based events, nature-based tourism, sports-based tourism and recreation, and proximity to other desirable areas within their region. Another asset that was described more specifically by multiple informants was the inter-community support. So this can include stakeholders from similar businesses supporting one another in certain circumstances, as well as businesses or business owners from multiple businesses, varying in their sector, supporting one another as well. So while there are assets and strengths within the participating communities, there are specific challenges that we do need to address to better understand overall capacity. There were 4 overarching themes that emerged with regards to very specific place-based challenges faced within community. First, there was marketing. So 12 of the 13 informants indicated that they did engage in marketing, whether that was for their own businesses and establishments or the community as a whole. However, many indicated that they faced challenges in hitting their target audiences on a consistent basis, as well as being able to ensure the outreach of their advertisements. Many of these individuals indicated that they don't actually have marketing backgrounds. So that information on how to successfully and effectively implement these strategies can at times be lost. Some tourism agencies do conduct these services for businesses, but most require a certain fee or a service fee, which most stakeholders either can't really afford or can't justify within their budgets. Bringing me very nicely into the next point. The second challenge faced by stakeholders was accessing funding and resources. In addition to an at times inability to secure marketing funding support, informants also face challenges in securing supports for other resources and development plans. So this can include securing and facilitating events within community or providing additional infrastructure, whether that be for additional overnight guests or for seasonal workers. Difficulty in securing funds and resources for development typically arise due to the inability to dedicate time and effort into completing these grant applications, as well as a lack of feedback and support throughout the application process. Additionally, eligibility is a barrier for some stakeholders located within the national and provincial parks. Because they don't fall within a municipal title, this is a fundamental issue for regions that typically draw on national and international tourism. The third challenge was identified was limited infrastructure. So more specifically for accommodation GMs, communities seeking to tap into events-based tourism require established infrastructure. So if that infrastructure is not present, it's not always an easy process in either building the infrastructure or finding solutions to enable these events to take place within community. Last, but certainly not least, I wanted to discuss the challenge in community in relation to collaboration and communication. When informants were asked if there was collaboration with other organizations in community, whether to host and facilitate events or simply advertise the events of others and market the community as a destination center, there was a complete discrepancy in responses, which you can see in table 1 at the bottom of the screen. For accommodation GMs, the majority of the respondents indicated that there was effective collaboration and communication in community. However, when the community stakeholders were asked, the majority indicated that there was collaboration, but it was done either in part or on an inconsistent basis. Interestingly, this particular challenge may also be the solution for many stakeholders who are seeking to enhance the local tourism sector. So with regards to the previous examples provided in terms of challenges, what's needed? A centralized entity that consolidates resources for marketing, a centralized entity that provides applications and funding support for different organizations and businesses, outreach and raising awareness in terms of policy and developing new infrastructure within community, and a new collective strategy to better support the influx of folks on a seasonal basis. With regard to capacity, collaboration, also described as community engagement, and communication are major pillars in the competency framework, which will be discussed by Gary McNeely later on. Through the work conducted at the Rural Development Institute, it's been demonstrated that building capacity requires more than a single act. It's a systemic approach or a systems approach where multiple stakeholders have to come together to achieve their goals. Fundamentally, the ability to enhance collaboration and communication within and between rural and remote communities, as well as bridging the connections with other tourism agencies and organizations, may offer an opportunity to build more capacity within community. This was actually indicated by one of the informants who noted, before we're able to throw around any amounts of money anywhere, we need to have a sit down with all local stakeholders and have a conversation about what the struggles are. As a community, we need to have a frank conversation about what's changed and how can we get more aligned. As indicated in Table 2, when informants were specifically asked if their communities needed more capacity to build on local tourism, all 13 informants agreed, 100% yes. But now we need to determine where these capacity needs are and how they differ between communities, and if it's possible to connect communities to allow everyone share their insights, strengths, and perspectives on addressing these challenges. So thank you so much for listening in. I'm really glad we had an opportunity to share the findings from the Accommodation in Manitoba project. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Jane Ireland to share insights on what arts can offer opportunities within the tourism sector, with the perspective from the Manitoba Arts Network.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to acknowledge that the Manitoba Arts Network and our members live and work on Treaty 1, 2, 3, and 5 territories. We acknowledge and appreciate the contributions of the past, present, and future generations of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Cree, OJ Dakota, Dene people, and the Métis Nation, as well as the Inuit people who have a strong community here in Manitoba. We are committed to developing a stronger relationship towards increased representation of Indigenous peoples in the arts. We always start our webinars with that land acknowledgement. And it's funny because I think that sort of fits in with building capacity. Because when we're talking about building capacity, we're talking about how do we strengthen and enrich our organizations. That's one of the ways we do that. And that's why it's important for us to acknowledge that every time we gather together as a group. So I'm just going to talk a bit about when you're talking about tourism, you're talking about building capacity, because how are you reaching out to not only your own community, but larger communities? So capacity building is about strengthening your own organization so you can achieve your mission and have a positive impact in your community. It's not about doing more for less. Okay. And that's something that I think is key, because I think we all struggle with that as arts organizations. And we also think that bigger is better. Bigger is not always better. Sustainability and creating something sustainable is better. So when we're talking about what our goal is in building capacity, we're talking about having a more robust, responsive, and resilient organization that continues to thrive and serve our communities. How do we do that? What is capacity building then? Well, capacity building is different for everybody. Your organization has unique values and context. So in order to think about what capacity building means for you, it's a good idea to make a list, right? What capacity building activities serve your organization? And again, it's not a cookie cutter approach, but that's not to say, as Nicole raised, that once you establish that you can't make connections with other organizations to work together on those building blocks. You also need to ask yourself, because again, I'm preaching to people who do this a lot, are your activities achievable? Because if they're not, you're not building capacity, you're not building your economic stake in the community. You also need to talk about, as we just said, around connections, who can assist you? Who are potential partners that you could be reaching out to? What other key stakeholders are in your community that can help you? And you need to talk about who is going to do this. So what are your tasks? Do you have the capacity to take on these tasks? So is it your staff? Is it board members? Is it volunteers? Is it partners? Is it members of your community who are going to help you with that? So I know we're talking a lot about capacity building, and I think some people don't really understand what does that mean. It's a term that's been thrown around. So when we're talking about capacity, we're talking about usually refining our goals, procedures, and processes. So things like strategic planning is part of capacity building. Organizational improvements, wherever you're going to improve your organization to meet your mission and your goals, that's capacity building. Sometimes it means looking at new operational models. Sometimes it means just developing specific plans. And again, this is where I'm talking about do what's achievable. If a strategic plan is not achievable for you right now, there are other things you can do. You can develop specific plans that lead towards a completed strategic plan. So for instance, maybe diversity is what's important to you right now. So develop a diversity plan. Maybe accessibility is what's important to you. Develop an accessibility plan. And there's partners you can partner with for that. For instance, Creative Manitoba, Arts Accessibility. All of those organizations can help you in your process is the word I'm looking for, towards capacity building. Maybe strengthening community engagement is what you want to focus on right now. Maybe that's one of your key capacity wishes. So look at how you can go about doing that. Who are some of the partners you can partner with in your community? And also, again, as you know, I'm big on collaboration and partnerships in your community. Building partnerships with non-art sector folks is key. We become stronger the more entrenched and attached we are to other sectors in our communities. They become our cheerleaders, we become theirs. It's a great little combination there. So in terms of specifics for the arts, I want to just, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways of building capacity. It can be financial sustainability, organizational development, community engagement and audience development, which I also know is a big one for a lot of folks. Artistic excellence in programming, how do we increase that? Advocacy, infrastructure and space development, which as we chatted about earlier, is a huge issue with several organizations. How do we do that? How do we secure that sustainable and accessible space that's also affordable? Because that's part of building our capacity to then move to maybe our next goal. So I wanted to just sort of leave you with 3 sort of easy wins, possibly easy wins, that you could start with. And I'll send this out too. I've got a sheet that I can send out to everybody because I'm just sort of blah, 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 trying to not take up too much time. So one would be strengthen your donor and corporate relations. And you do that through consistent engagement. Make sure you're always doing thank you emails, no matter how small. If somebody donates, you know, I don't know what would be a small thing. You all know what a small thing is. That deserves a thank you. That deserves you reaching out and connecting again with that person. Doing outreach to local businesses for sponsorships, but talking to them about what can we do for you? We want your sponsorship, but we can provide you with something else. Maybe it's tickets to the event. Maybe it's something like we can provide, you know, the kids of your employees with free art classes, whatever. Looking for why it's a win for them to be connected and collaborating with you. You can also look at leveraging digital marketing and social media if you haven't already done it. There again, Man can help with this. Actually, is brilliant at this. Looking at creating simple content calendars to highlight the artists and the programs that you're putting out there. And also maybe telling stories about the impact that's happened in different communities who have either had this artist or had this performer. You can also expand your outreach through partnerships with, and again, we talked about this earlier before everyone came on the call, so with your schools and your libraries, and looking to who are your community leaders and how can they help you attract new audiences. We're all struggling with that in terms of bringing audiences back, but also increasing and strengthening who we have. So again, working in community, as Nicole was talking about, is incredibly important. Introduce or optimize a membership program. So again, some of us have membership programs, some of us don't. Maybe you want to think about doing one. And what kind of small perks could you give them for that? Some of them are really easy because, again, businesses in your community love giving discount stuff. That's a way of getting people in the door. That's what you're doing for them. But in terms of your membership, that's something you're giving your members. So looking at things like that, and again, lots of ideas around that, and all of us can share some of those ideas, I'm sure. And improving your internal systems. So this one is pretty important to me. And again, the next RDI webinar is going to be talking about this as well. We need to look at how we track data. And I know a lot of you are probably sitting there going, what? Because we don't do it. We don't do it enough. We don't do it very well. And we really, in terms of grants, in terms of advocacy for the arts in Manitoba, but also in your community, people still want data. They want you to have data. And it drives us crazy, but it's important. And so if we can find a way of better keeping track of data and all kinds of data, and formalizing that in a way so that we have a shared platform so that data can be aggregated and used provincially. We're bad at that. We need to get better. Volunteer coordination. Figure out I know we're all struggling for volunteers. So how can we improve our system for that? And what else can we be doing to make that better and bringing more people in? And also, how do we do reporting? Coming up with simple tools so that it's easy to report. So it's not something that it's onerous. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be simple. So that's sort of my spiel. And just again, the more you build capacity, the stronger you are, the more you're going to feed in to the economy of your community, because you're going to be attracting not only local people, but people from outside your community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jane. I think that was such a lovely anecdote to leave off on, and incredibly valuable tips, especially very attainable and identifiable tips. So I appreciate that. Next, we have Kaitlyn Mitchell. So Kaitlyn, whenever you're ready, you can jump right in.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to Manitoba Arts Network and Rural Development Institute for hosting this session today. I feel like a lot of my notes actually echo a lot of what Jane just said. But rather than put it out in general concept, I wanted to share with you today a little bit about what the WMCA has been doing the past 2 years. And I'll just start with a little bit of history, actually, of the WMCA. So for those of you that are not familiar, the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium is located right in Breedon. We are on the northeast corner of campus, northwest, actually, corner of campus. So right on BU campus, but not associated with the university. We have been in operation since 1969. We just celebrated our 55th anniversary bringing arts into Breedon. And although we do have just the population of Breedon that we serve, we also serve the greater Breedon area and all of Westman and into southeastern Saskatchewan as well. People will travel to come to our venue to see shows. So the things that stood out to me when thinking about capacity building, I actually found a really nice graphic of a wheel that I'll send to Jane after, and she can share it with all of you. It was really important to kind of keep that in perspective, that capacity building is a wheel and it's in constant motion. You start with your development in organizations and partnerships and leaderships. We then take action. We then reflect and monitor and evaluate, find a way to make that sustainable, and we keep on going. What's really important to me in our process of this is not waiting. A lot of times people will wait to take action until they feel that they already have that sustainable product, that the product is already perfect. But what I have learned from experience is that we learn from the soft launches, we learn from the failures, and we learn from the experiments. So keep that going to keep that wheel in motion. The WMCA is currently in what I'm calling our transition era. Yes, that's a little Swifty remark. But we're actively working on building our capacity all the time. More facility usage, more engaged citizens, more shows, more variety, just more is our general theme. But what we have quickly learned is that building capacity is more than just the desire to do more. You have to have a lot of things in place in order to reach your goals. So the definition of building capacity that resonated with me was we are trying to strengthen our skills, instincts, abilities, techniques, and resources in order to thrive. So again, strengthening our skills, instincts, abilities, techniques, and resources. That's a whole lot of things to work on. So what we're focusing on right now is building strong and capable leaders within our team and teams of teams. We know that we are only as strong as our people are capable of being. We also have a clear understanding of our direction and our goals, but maybe we need to readjust our timelines a little bit to make it more realistic. Part of this project was doing some strategic planning. So we may move the goalpost, we may lengthen those deadlines, but we're not going to change our goal. We have a clear direction and a clear vision. So now we can assess organizationally where we are and what we need to build and develop further in order to reach our destination. As I said, though, we have taken action as we go. We're not waiting to be perfect. We're changing what no longer serves us, admitting what we don't know, and seeking to fill those gaps, whether it's through additional people or training, whatever we can. We're trying to remove the rosy retrospection lens that people look at this facility with and dig down into the realities of what is going on in today's society, economy, and within our own communities. Sometimes you need to get a trusted outside perspective to help you see those gaps. And I'm here to tell you there is nothing wrong with that, and to seek those people out and to surround yourself with mentors. So sometimes when you're deep in the weeds, it's hard to see the big picture. So seek out that advisement and that help. A really hot topic in the arts industry, especially for myself in the past 6 months, has been audience development. There's been a lot of training and seminars and research being conducted by the sector on a national, provincial, and municipal level. How we can pool our resources to learn more about these new post-COVID audience trends. The audiences may not be new, but their trends and their habits really do seem to be. So a few things that the WMCA is doing. We're creating a presence outside of our facility within not just Brandon and our community, but also the provincial arts community and the national arts community by joining organizations and being a part of conversations. Some of those conversations are happening with our neighbors at BU to learn how we can provide student enrichment and student arts opportunities so that they can see themselves in this sector and having a career and building a passion in this area. Something new that it may seem very obvious to a lot of you, but we just started sending out audience surveys. We're not getting a ton of collection back, again, implementing before it's perfect, but we will redevelop and repeat and rinse and repeat until we have a sustainable product. We're just using Google Forms for this. It's kept anonymous, and we sent it out as an e-blast to our audience members after the show through our box office. We're looking at shaking up some of our programming for 25 and 26 in order to develop our audiences more. This isn't going to include slow touring, where the artists are going to stay in our communities for multiple days. They're going to visit schools, local institutions, teach master classes, and really get to know our independent areas, and traveling outside to Western Manitoba as well, not just sticking in Brandon, because I think that we do have a larger purpose to serve there. We're putting on a few widely accessible shows this season. Whether that looks like free or pay what you can, I don't quite know yet. But I want there to be at least 3 shows this season that will be widely accessible to every family, whether they can afford a ticket or not. We're also switching up some of our genres, our show times, and show formats. We've started doing our front room sessions. So these are smaller, more intimate engagements in our foyer only under our chandelier lights. And it's very much like a listening experience or a talk back with an artist. It's way more intimate than what you get in a concert hall. We're also exploring ways to reward our avid patrons, identify initiators. So those people that are, the ones that are getting their friends to come, we want to find a way to find them and reward them. And part of this was our soft launch of our Friends of the WMCA enrollment program. Again, it was just a soft launch, so we will be tweaking it and relaunching it again for September 25, but without any sort of promotion or engagement or anything, just word of mouth. People were asking about the program. So for me, that's a win as long as it's exposure. The other thing that has been a huge focus for the WMCA, as I know it is a focus for many, is space development. We are fortunate enough that I am a venue, or we are a venue. We are a space. So we don't have the struggles of finding a space, but we do have the struggles of maintaining this space, with it being an old concrete building. What that also means to me in space development is not just your physical spaces, but also your safe spaces, the environment you're creating, the atmosphere that you're providing. Are you giving your patrons an experience or just a show? Are they coming to your venue with a sense of belonging? Or are they just attendees going to, Canada Life Center to watch whoever? Do they feel like they're really devoted to your building? Infrastructure has been a huge focus for us. As I've said, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone who's been paying attention to any news outlets in Brandon or area, that we do have a large amount of capital funding coming to us this year to address some fairly serious foundational problems in life and safety systems. But what we did in order to get to that point where we were actually able to obtain this grant was we got people's attention. For better or worse, we have their attention. We didn't hide behind our problems. We made it very known that, there's some serious infrastructure problems. And if the community wants us to exist for another 55 years, we need to pay attention and be on board. We asked the experts. We had a facility assessment done. So we have expert opinions and reports to back up our claims of what we need. We made a plan. So we have a very strong 5-year capital plan that we have been using to advocate and support our requests. We advocated to our local government. Because we know them better, we worked really closely with our local government to have them advocate and work the provincial systems in tandem with us. They know a lot more people. They are able to have a lot more opportunities for conversations. So by working with our local government to advocate for this funding was hugely beneficial. The other part of it is that we provided proof that we were willing to put our money where our mouth is and our community's money where our mouth is. So we implemented a per ticket surcharge of $1.50 that has been restricted for the use of capital investment in our facility. And we've made this publicly known that that's where people's money is going. But it's proven to our funding partners that we're willing to take the action as well as their support. So we're working together to make this happen. Aside from the infrastructure, we're working to have a space that is a touring destination through upgrading our equipment and increasing artist conversations and venue exposure through attending conferences like Manitoba Showcase, OSAC, ATAA. We want a space that our community and really all of Western Manitoba is proud of, where they want to spend time and, let's face it, where they want to spend money. A safer space is something that we are striving to provide, a space that celebrates and educates, unites, and where people have experiences, not just attend performances. It was worded to me beautifully that when you go to a concert, your heartbeats synchronize with the bass of the musicians, and everyone is collectively breathing and collectively has a heartbeat, and you just don't get that anywhere else than you will with a live arts experience. We are doing this by establishing clear policies and setting the expectations that match the realities of what the patrons are going to experience. As we know better, we do better, but we're honest and we don't hide behind our shortcomings. We are continuing to seek resources to make our facility more accessible and inclusive and having these conversations with our communities and our partners. And finally, we're building stronger relationships each and every day, not just with our arts partners, but with organizations outside and our local Chamber of Commerce as well. So thank you very much for listening today and for having me speak, and I'll pass it back.
Thank you so much, Kaitlyn. It was lovely to hear about the auditorium. I feel like, I've been on Brandon, I've been with Brandon University for quite some time, but this was such a lovely representation of the auditorium and the work that you do. So thank you. All right, I will now hand it over to Dr. Gary McNeely.
Are you going to share the slides?
Yes.
As Nicole is doing that, I'd just like to reiterate again what Nicole said, and Jane, there's this real, and Kaitlyn, there's a real synergy between all of our presentations. And so I'm going to try to be quick on the mark here, just to sort of go and highlight a few things about the project that Dr. Wayne Kelly, that many of you know, the director of RDI, he and I have been working on a capacity building project for the last 2 years, and we have a number of pieces that are coming together and gelling. But I want to go and make it a really, really simple kind of a presentation that highlights some of the issues, and to perhaps acknowledge the issue about capacity, but again, change the frame of reference a little bit just to go and get a sense of that. And so the 3 other presentations that really identified a little sort of frame of reference in terms of how we conceptualize capacity building. And it all comes down to this little phrase on the right there, on the left side, I guess, on our screen, bring the right people and the organizations with the right skills and resources together at the right time and place to achieve a particular task, goal, or project. And so nice, easy little thing, but it really highlights that it's the right people or organizations, not everyone, okay, but the right ones, and the skills and resources that are most appropriate to deal with those task goals and projects at the right time. And so there is some sort of coherent sort of gathering together in particular ways in order to go and achieve those goals. And so it really is the capacity of how we can actually coordinate that in a collaborative way as necessary to make those projects achievable, as opposed to a frustration and just, well, let's just give up the ghost and no, I'm just going to go and fall away. But it's not just the capacity, but it actually is building and enhancing. And so everyone has the capacity, and it really is trying to go and level up, so to speak. Question is making sure that that is possible and recognizing that capacity. And so, Kaitlyn, you hit the nail on the head as the prior learning assessment coordinator. This is all about learning. Okay? And how many times did we sort of fall when we were young? Until we finally learn how to walk. Probably many times, okay? Scraped our bones when we fell off our bike, but we learn by doing as opposed to anticipating that it's going to go, and the learning is going to be the 1, 2, 3, poof, I have it. You got to go and do something to actually learn. And so it's trying to find a way to get that going. And so to go and reframe out again what capacity in the context of rural community development, another way to sort of putting it, so RDI is trying to develop a process for developing community-based capacity building plans for CED. It's another way of putting it. So there has to be a plan of action, okay, as opposed to ad hoc. The unfortunate thing about this, and then this is the issue about the challenges around capacity building, is actually to go and recognize that the plans vary significantly, unfortunately, and that they need to be community-based. And so the three presentations right off the bat sort of identifying that there are different kinds of communities. And so I know Jane is sort of headquartered in Killarney there. And so there is a community, okay, as a place, I mean, as a boundary and a municipality, okay? And the Art Network, the Manitoba Arts Network, is a community of practice and interest, but both coincide and they both work together. So any tourism kind of situation is actually trying to expand the boundaries of your community to bring in people around a particular kind of practice, in this case, arts, music, or visual arts is the case, and everything in between, dance, whatever, right? So it's trying to get a sense of that. And so it's trying to get a sense of what is achievable in that respect. Everyone on the same page, I think? So next one, yeah, thanks, Nicole. So in our research over the last couple of years, trying to go and name the capacities that you're wanting or needing to do. And so we did a huge number of scans over the last couple of years, going from really a business management side of stuff on nonprofit sectors, I mean, industry sectors, to try to get what's really at the core of capacity building for various organizations or even industry sectors. And we got this list of 5 here, and I just draw attention to the asterisk that points back again to Nicole's, about which always seem come to the surface as a means of enabling the learning to increase your capacity. And so instead of using the word capacity, I'm using the word competencies to sort of to get a more specific frame of reference to it. And so Jane also, and I think Kaitlyn, you also noted again about different kinds of things that you're engaging. So the capital program for the IMCA is about a project management in terms of going and rebuilding a very old facility again to make it go. Communications, engagement, leadership, project management, and as Jane said about community knowledge, data collection, analysis. Everybody wants, if you're going to go and ask for monies from the government or a municipality or whatever, they want to see the evidence, okay? And the data provides the evidence that it's just not dreamy and technicolor, but you can actually point to something very specific. And as you know, in our next webinar that we'll be attending, again, the highlighted in yellow or BU gold, I guess it would be, we're going to be talking about just that issue and the challenges around it, and how to go and enable organizations and individuals that are involved in these projects to make their world a better place, to make your whole operations better, as the case may be. So another side way about this thing too, unfortunately, is that everyone has different competency levels in terms of the 5. So I have a great way of sort of speaking, communicating, maybe, but I don't know whether I would be advanced or in some cases basic. So are there any visual artists on the line? Put up a finger, a thumb. Visual artists. Okay, excellent. So I well aware, again, art history, and I have done a lot of sort of visual arts in my time in high school, but I still dabble a little bit. I can do some landscapes, not too badly in some situations, but if you ask me to draw a figure, what do you get? A stick man, okay, or a stick woman, or anything in between, okay? I'm less than basic, okay? So the issue is trying to find out what level you are on in some respect or art, and what plans that perhaps we can design collaboratively to go and enhance your abilities. And as you say, Kaitlyn, the knowledge, skills, and ability techniques that you have to go and do those various kinds of operations. On the same page? So the question is about how to find what level you're on. And that's my segue to the last slide. Is that using prior learning recognition methods to identify exactly what skill or knowledge level you have in different areas. Okay? And so it really is trying to find out, recognizing competencies attained through being involved in community practice is one way. If you haven't been involved in a community development project, you have no experience in that. Okay. And so you may have some training in those areas, okay, but it may not be at the level that you're expected to fulfill given your particular organization. And so you hit the ceiling in terms of what you can actually achieve, to go back to Jane's point. And you have a priority that you want to deal with as a development for your operation, okay, but your skill level, knowledge level is insufficient to meet that end, and you get frustrated, and you can do it. So as Kaitlyn, your point is, mark on, is that you can still learn by attempting to achieve it, but recognizing that there still may be issues that you have to do. Okay. So second point then again is recognizing competence is acquired while people are involved in the projects themselves. And so right now, I'm not sure, Kaitlyn, because of your focus as an organization, even the network, what tracking of knowledge do you have as an individual and skills that the Arts Network has as a means of enhancing your ability? So you need to establish a baseline about how strong you are and how to leverage that into something perhaps more challenging. And as you learn, as you identify the gaps in your competencies or capacities, then it's to try to find out how to fill those gaps. So sometimes, again, just doing is sufficient, but sometimes you need to do gap training and trying to find out whether that can be a very small thing, okay, or a lot more. And it's to try to find what priorities in that gap training are necessary for the auditorium or the network in order to achieve your goals. It's a case to be trying to enforce, trying to expect that people's going to, well, you need to go and do a Master of Business Administration. Okay. Who out there is want to do that? Take off 3 years, spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time. You got to have a roof over your head. So nope, I want to do that. You want to do something that is also minimal, but has a maximal impact. And then also to measure the impact of that training. And so you're always enhancing your abilities. Okay. So each one of us, so this PLAR process, it really starts with a self-assessment to try to find out, to be honest with yourself, what is your skill level in all your roles and responsibilities that you have, and either as a volunteer or a paid person, in order to, again, to accelerate that capacity. And then what training is necessary. So sometimes it's very formal from at a university level or a college level. Sometimes there can be in-house training or workplace training that is very specific to your particular needs. Okay. Question is, that's going to be a cost to you. You want to make sure that that cost is exponentially enhancing to your interest, as opposed to paying in some consultant, paying enormous amounts of dollars, and it really isn't a learning opportunity for you. And so it really is learning that information, but also applying it and recognizing that, yes, I can be recognized at a higher level than I was before. Okay. So everyone, going back to the previous slide in the levels and then those competencies, it's like you can have, it's really sort of a more of an elastic kind of thing. You're not having to be advanced at all those competencies, but at a particular level to go and do certain kind of jobs. And so when you have a board, it really is tracking about who's around the table when you're having a board meeting, who has the really, really strong financial skills to be able to go and do some kind of development work, or like a new infrastructure for an art gallery, or sort of what it would be in Churchill. Nice, but you need to have somebody with that kind of background. Question is, do you need to be a banker? Okay. If you can involve a banker on your board, then it's even better. Okay. But if you can't, then you have to rely on somebody else who has something as a baseline to be able to go and work from there. So the whole process about the PLAR really is trying to go and find out how to go and recognize the learning that you really haven't perhaps recognized even about yourselves. You just do the work, but you don't recognize your level. So a bit of a challenge. And with that, if you want to learn more about the capacity project, there's a QR code there. Okay, take a picture, get a line. Okay, and it's a moving target. And so what's available through that QR code is just a little hint of more pieces to the capacity building project that we're engaging on at RDI. And your involvement in the arts community, again, is just sort of one of a perhaps case study about how it can be broadened off into another area. We've been working with the community foundations and again, the tourism industry, immigrant service organizations as another organization in communities. Bunch of them. And with that, I'll stop because we're at the end of the line here at 1 o'clock, and not much room for Q&A. Thank you, and merci.
Thanks, Gary. Do you want me to take it from here, Nicole?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much, Gary. That was lovely. And I'm glad that the slides worked. Okay.
Well, I want to thank all the presenters. That was fabulous. I was madly scribbling a lot down, and then I realized, wait, I recorded this. Why am I taking all these notes? Dear. So we just have a couple questions, but again, feel free to put some in the chat if there is something else. The first one is from Andrea, and she wanted to know what you would say are some tips to get people to feel like they're part of the solution or part of the community. And she said with the advertisements, I'm not sure what you meant by that, Andrea. Do you want to clarify that? Oh, you're muted.
Hello. Hi. Sorry. I guess I was just wondering, when you're, because I've attended, I think it was Akshay's seminar before, and one of the things he noted is that, you want to speak to people, like not tell them what to do, but, encourage them. So how do you, without sounding too pushy or whatever, and get all the information across, get them to get that feeling that you guys are talking about, that they want to be involved, or they want to purchase art or purchase tickets? Just maybe some key words is what I'm looking for, or something, or maybe some key actions. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw that one to Nicole first and see if you have any suggestions or ideas on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be a little frank and a little honest here in terms of the capacity building and the engagement piece. We haven't been able to dive into that too deeply, but I will say I think it's just raising the awareness. Like the marketing needs of these organizations was very underlined after having these discussions. So I think even something so simple as sharing a post, something as simple as sharing the advertisements and breathing life into the posters that you see and the spaces that you're going to, I think that has a lot more impact than we know. And so I think, yeah, just giving more breadth and more space to all of those different advertisements and activities going on. Like even if you can't go, if you know someone who might be interested, or just bringing them up, it's as simple as that, and it could make a huge difference. I think, especially too, to see someone else validating the excitement for these activities. I think that would really help in a very passive way.
I like the last statement, as far as like maybe getting other people to like chain react. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is like, how do you, because especially for me, it's like it's always coming from me, and it's like, come out to this and support this, and it's like this lady's always asking us to do stuff.
Yeah, so it seems like you're already doing that, so I'm so sorry my answer to
Yeah, no, but I will, I think what I'm hearing from that is to pass it on to other people that are feeling the same way, and getting them to do as much as I'm doing.
Well, and I'll pass it over to Gary, but I just want to say one of the other things is it's always helpful when you're doing your advertising or your posting, the stories, the impact that stories from other people have, and how people then relate to that, right? So when they see somebody else saying, oh, I wish I'd gone to see this, singer before and it did this to me. Other people can then connect sometimes with that. Particularly the, oh, I wish I'd done that part. And that's sort of how you can then try to reel them in as well, too. Gary, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, just a small point. I'm not sure, Kaitlyn, because you may actually have this because you're doing as much sort of marketing and you want to go and fill the seats and that kind of stuff too. But it's one of those cases of in organizationally, we have familiar practices. Okay? We've always done it this way. And we, not sort of like level up, we actually sort of level down to not a complacency, but the familiarity of how things have been done gives us comfort, and that we're not really sort of pushing ourselves to consider alternatives. So that's part of the like building the capacity is to sometimes actually think outside the box. And so so different strategies again for communications. And so talk to Dr. Google. There might be different ways again to go and just touch base on possibilities in terms of getting the word out, and simple difference in phrasing. I'm not sure. It's just a weird way of the communication possibilities that might be doing it. And so it is actually as part of Jane's point again about organizational stuff, trying to find out the practice that you do and the impacts of those practices. Okay, and if no change, then sometimes, well, we got to go do something a little bit different because nothing's changing. And so when you do the capacity building project that we have is trying again to go and have some record keeping of your activities to have a sense about the impacts. And so the record keeping again is as small as possible. Not to write a dissertation because we've done one of those and I want to do it again. Okay? It actually is to have a short note, but those are the points again. It can be a discussion from the board as opposed to talking verbally all the time. You can have a record of the discussion that it gives a more informed discussion and informed debate, I guess, about next steps. So it still is, Kaitlyn, A+ on the recognizing learning, but it really is. If you just speak about it, you might not be able to go and actually sort of track how things are going, because I remember what you said and well, I didn't say that. So it gives you sort of more evidence base again about how the conversation has changed over time. Okay.
Kaitlyn, I bet you have something very good to add to this question.
I don't know if I would say very good, but I do have a couple of points to add to this conversation that stem out of national conversations that are being had on these topics of community engagement versus advertising. The general theory that's being explored right now is that these are two very different avenues. Your advertising may or may not directly build that community engagement. The more community engagement you do may or may not have an advertising impact. But it's more likely that it will go that way than it will go the other way. So in terms of getting people to feel like they're a part of the solution or a part of the community, I would suggest looking outside of your advertising messaging. Are you getting out and doing community parades? How many people know your organization exists? Are you having conversations with people as you walk down the street or in line at the grocery store, or people that you meet? How are you getting them to feel like they're part of your organization? Are you hosting community events that are maybe unpaid or low dollar value, such as talkbacks, such as different activities that they might be able to be a part of, like community art projects? How are you giving back to them is how you're going to get them to feel like they're a part of you, is if you're giving them something that they have a perceived value in, and that may not be dollars and it may not be advertising, it may be a sense of belonging.
Excellent points. I would also add to that, Andrea's done a lot of that already. She's actually very good at connecting with community. But I think the other thing I would add is that, and you would know about this, Kaitlyn, is part of the conversation right now is also about having initiators in your community. And so and again, there's a lot more to that, what's going on in terms of that study, but just to make it simple, initiators are sort of like creating cheerleaders. So it's finding out who is it in your community that, number one, supports what you're doing, or attends the things that you put on, or all of those things, and how can you basically capture their energy to put it out to the wider community. So, whether it's their friends or their work colleagues, or, like you say, in the grocery store, are they talking about, oh my gosh, did you see what they're doing with the arts here in, Thompson? So it's not just, don't take, and again, this goes back to my whole thing about capacity building. What's achievable? You are not the cheerleader. You need to find those cheerleaders, right? So everything doesn't have to be you doing it. And then, of course, there are still the marketing things that, actually can always help with in terms of reaching out and, massaging the language and looking at how you want to do that. But anyone else want to weigh in on that? Or can I move to the next question? Okay, so the next question is, how does one get assessments? By what standard would you know what you lack and how much you need, and how to get that recognition and help? So I think, Frisenday, just are you going back to the competency? That's what you're discussing here? Yeah, okay, I thought so. And also, what levels of competency are required to meet your goals, and how do you figure that out? And the level of commitment required. So I'm going to let Gary take that one on.
Okay. I knew this was going to happen. Okay. The research actually that we did, and I don't want to go and get complicated here, but we looked at a number of different competency frameworks they are. And like leadership is an example. It was one that was running through all the ideas in terms of how to go and do things better. Project management was also a very familiar one too. So the challenge that was sort of in our focus, we're looking at rural communities that are small with a limited population, and Brandon would be included in that, I think, even though it's a city, but it's trying to get a sense about who's involved and who comes around the table at the particular project. And so it really, the competencies, there are frameworks for these competencies, but in a rural community where you have far fewer people, and many of them again have post-secondary in some form or other. There's a whole range of education levels that you actually have. But in some respects, it depends actually on the project itself, in terms of what competencies are really central, which ones are peripheral, okay, and which ones would require an extra step up at level. So on the one slide I had, there's 3 levels, and those are 3 levels, not to be expert at like having like many years of experience, but again, expertise level that was enables to fulfill the project. And so, unfortunately, there is not a magic bullet, or there's a Band-Aid that's going to go on and fix it, because it depends on the community, practice, or a domain, sort of like, or a boundary place, but also the project itself in terms of which ones you need a higher level. So anytime that you want to go and build something, like an actual shovels in the ground, there's going to be a competency level that's going to be far higher again. The capital stuff that's done in the Westman Centennial Auditorium is a capital fund project that requires a certain level of competencies than doing a Main Street repainting program. All you need to go is to round up some artists that are willing to go and splash some paint in an organized way to make things look nicer. But it doesn't really require rebuilding the fronts of all the buildings in your Main Street. It might have some tinkering, but not, again, a rebuild completely. And so it does depend on the project itself. that you do not have to be at an expert level to both participate in community development, okay? And so sometimes actually you could be quite happy with many people that are just the initiators or at the initial level as a means of having involved people at a volunteer level to learn and be involved. And this is fun, and you can they might find encouragement by their participation and their achievement in that to go and get it too. So you don't actually have to have the highest level. So we're trying to figure out again, part of our project of different types of projects, and which ones really require a higher level of resources. You need to have lots of money. You got to have X, Y, and Z. Other ones you don't, which means that the competency levels can maybe sort of be reduced in some way. So it's trying to find out about the specifics of the project itself and who does need to be at the table with what skill level. And so it's not high in everyone, okay? It can be narrowed down or expanded. And so it really is that the variation is part of the nightmare that I'm going through, because there isn't a one Band-Aid sort of fits all bruises. It just doesn't work that way at all. And you'd frustrate everyone to try to go and achieve something that, as Jane was saying, achieve something that requires more specific kinds of knowledge and skills. Okay. I wish there was an easy answer to that. So come to, we should have a conversation, okay, a Zoom meeting, and we can talk about that. Okay, absolutely.
Thanks, Gary. I think we all sort of at a very lower level understand what this is best by thinking about our boards, if we have a board. And when we think about our boards and who we want to be on our board, we're always thinking of the competencies. So what does our organization need on a board? Well, we need somebody who has some sort of financial knowledge. It's good to have somebody who sort of has leadership or at least is able to like lead a meeting. We need somebody who loves taking minutes. We need, community members from different, things. So that's sort of the competencies you're looking for. And so when you're looking at a project and you make a list of sort of, okay, in order to do this, we need somebody who knows this, 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 and this. And this is where I say, if it's not achievable, that's not the project for you. That's not where you need to build capacity. Maybe you need to look at changing the project or looking at a different project where you have those people already in place or you know where to find them. And I think that's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, that's sort of where that's where you either decide, are you going to learn yourselves and teach yourselves those competencies to do the project? Or are you going to look outside and hire a consultant? If you don't have the money, maybe this isn't the project.
Yep. So as a last little point about that, part of the assessment process that we're doing through is actually to take a look at past projects. And well, by looking through, if you have some record keeping of them, anytime that you have money spent, okay, you're going to have some record keeping on that, but also you would have perhaps like who was part of the project team, okay? And this all goes back again to the project management competency that is very common across the board because you're always trying to attain some goal, okay? And so the project can be an operational issue, change of operations, or it can be some other project that is just certainly like more grants to have more arts community work available wherever. Okay, that's not an operations issue. That's again sort of that's just the mandate of your organization itself. So the past projects are very telling in terms of where you hit the capacity limits and something was very frustrating. Things got sort of moved off the table, or we just stopped. Okay, we just didn't do it. Okay, the past projects, even though the failing projects, things went wildly wrong, are as much of a learning opportunity as the one that exceeded their expectation. Okay. So everything cannot be perfect. Okay. The imperfection again is sometimes where things go sideways, is sometimes where you need to acknowledge that and ask, and so what went wrong and why? And it's not a blame game, okay, that you did something wrong. It really is, it's a coordination of that learning. And so part of the whole issue is, again, the shared learning by working together is more important, that the learning happens in my head, in my hands. When I go someplace else, it leaves me with me, okay? You want to make sure that learning is shared, okay? So you have a legacy of that involvement over time.
It's great.
Anyway, I'll stop.
I see we're really going longer than anyone probably, and people obviously have to move on to other things. So, any last words from any of our presenters? No, I'm seeing no. Well, again, I want to thank you all. The recording will be available. Actually, we'll make it available. And any materials, slideshow, whatever, if you're interested in receiving that, just let me know and I will make sure I grab that from the presenters. And I just again want to thank everybody for coming. This was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thanks for having us, Jane. It was lovely to see you all.
And the data, excuse me, the next webinar, which is going to be about data collection and optimization, is going to be on May 5th. And again, we'll be sending out information on that. There is another webinar coming up. Sorry, we didn't mean to have them so close together, but on May 9th, we will be doing the webinar on social enterprises and how that works for the arts and how it helps. And that's with Wendy Peterson from Community Futures. So again, actually, we'll be sending the information out. Well, actually, I think he already has.
Sorry, that's on April 9th.
Sorry, did I say May?
Yes, that's
Sorry,
on April 9th.
Oh, okay.
So yes, April 9th. So hopefully we'll see you all there.